You're in 9th century Scandinavia, and you need to understand that violence here isn't an aberration. It's not something that happens occasionally during wars or raids. Violence is the fundamental organizing principle of this society. It's how disputes are resolved. It's how honor is maintained. It's how social status is determined. It's woven into every aspect of daily life so thoroughly that you can't escape it. And as a common person with no powerful family connections, you're at the bottom of this violent hierarchy, which means you're always vulnerable, always at risk, always one insult away from death. Let's start with the legal system, because you need to understand how fundamentally different it is from anything you know. In modern societies, the state has a monopoly on violence. If someone wrongs you, you go to the police, to the courts, to official authorities who will investigate and punish the wrongdoer. In Viking Age Scandinavia, there is no police force. There is no state authority that protects you. Justice is private. If someone wrongs you, it's your responsibility and your family's responsibility to seek compensation or revenge. This system is called blood feud, and it dominates Viking society. Someone kills your brother. In a modern context, you would report this to the police. They would investigate. They would arrest the killer. There would be a trial. The killer would go to prison. In Viking Age Scandinavia, none of that exists. Your brother is dead, and now you have two options. Option 1, you demand vergild, which is monetary compensation for the death. The killer's family might agree to pay this, and if they do, the matter is settled. Option 2, if they refuse to pay or if you decide that money isn't sufficient, you kill the killer or someone in his family. This is not murder in the legal sense. This is justice. This is how the system works. But here's where it gets complicated. When you kill the killer to avenge your brother, you've now created a new wrong that demands compensation or revenge. The killer's family now has the same options you had: demand vergild or kill you or someone in your family. If they choose revenge, your family must respond, and suddenly you're in a blood feud that can last for generations, killing after killing, revenge after revenge, with no end in sight. You're a farmer with no powerful connections. Your family is small. You have your wife, your children, your elderly father, and a few cousins. That's it. You're trying to farm your land and survive. But you're caught in a blood feud that started 2 generations ago over an insult you barely understand. Your grandfather's brother killed someone from another family. That family killed your grandfather. Your father killed someone from that family in revenge. Now they've killed your uncle. The feud continues, and you know that eventually someone will come to kill you or your children, simply because you're part of this family. There's no way out. You can't move away because your land is your only source of survival. You can't appeal to any authority because there is no authority. You just live with the constant knowledge that violence could arrive at any moment. The thing is supposed to be where disputes are resolved peacefully. The thing is a gathering of free men who meet to hear cases, make judgments, and create laws. In theory, this prevents blood feuds by providing an alternative to revenge. In practice, the thing only works if both parties agree to abide by its judgment, and enforcement depends entirely on social pressure and the threat of violence. If the thing rules against you but you're powerful enough, you can simply ignore the ruling. If you're weak, the ruling against you will be enforced brutally. You attend a thing because your neighbor has accused you of letting your cattle damage his crops. This is a serious accusation because crop damage could mean the difference between survival and starvation for his family. You argue that your cattle were properly fenced and that his crops were damaged by wild animals, not your livestock. He argues that he saw your cattle in his field. There are no neutral investigators. There's no forensic evidence. It's your word against his. The assembly of free men must decide who to believe. The assembly believes him. You're ordered to pay compensation in the form of grain and livestock. This compensation will significantly deplete your resources. You can barely afford it, but if you refuse to pay, you'll be declared an outlaw. Being an outlaw means anyone can kill you with no legal consequences. Your property can be taken. You have no legal protection whatsoever, so you pay, even though it means your family will go hungry this winter because the alternative is death. But your neighbor isn't satisfied with the compensation. He feels you haven't shown proper respect. He feels you argued too vigorously at the thing, making him look bad in front of the community. 2 weeks later, he comes to your farmstead with several of his relatives. They're armed. They say they want to discuss the matter further, but their intentions are clear. This is about violence, about putting you in your place, about demonstrating his superior status. You have no choice but to submit. If you fight back, you'll be outnumbered and killed. If you survive but kill any of them, the blood feud will escalate to a level your small family can't survive. So you stand there while your neighbor insults you, while he pushes you, while he strikes you in front of your family. He wants you to react. He wants an excuse to escalate, but you can't give him that excuse. You endure the humiliation because survival requires it. He leaves, but the humiliation burns. You've been publicly shamed. In Viking society, honor is everything. Your reputation, your social standing, your ability to make alliances and conduct business, all of it depends on how others perceive your honor. You've just been beaten in front of your family and you did nothing. Your neighbors will hear about this. They'll know you're weak. They'll know you can be pushed around. This will affect every future interaction you have. People will be less likely to respect your property boundaries. They'll be less likely to honor agreements with you. They'll be less likely to support you in disputes. You've lost status, and in Viking society, low status is dangerous. Your son, who is 15, is furious about what happened. He says you should have fought back. He says you've dishonored the family by submitting. He doesn't understand the calculation you made, the understanding that fighting would have gotten you both killed. He's young and full of ideas about honor and bravery. He decides to restore the family's honor himself. He goes to your neighbor's farmstead and challenges him to holmgang. Holmgang is a formalized duel. It's supposed to be a way to settle disputes through individual combat rather than blood feud. There are rules. The combat takes place on a marked area, usually a cloak or animal hide spread on the ground. Each fighter gets 3 shields. If you step off the marked area, you're considered a coward and you lose.
If you're wounded and your life fluid falls on the cloak, you can yield.
The loser must pay compensation to the winner. If someone dies, it's considered a legal killing, not murder. Your son doesn't understand that holmgang is for equals. Your neighbor is a grown man, experienced in combat, bigger and stronger. Your son is 15 with no real combat experience. But honor culture demands that your neighbor accept the challenge or be seen as a coward himself. So the holmgang is arranged. You watch your son die. The fight lasts less than 5 minutes. Your neighbor is toying with him at first, making it clear how outmatched your son is. Then he gets bored and ends it. He cuts your son down with 3 strikes. Your son falls onto the cloak. He's still alive, gasping, looking at you. He dies there on the ground while the witnesses stand around watching. This is legal. This is justice. Your neighbor is owed compensation now because your son challenged him and lost. You have to pay him for the trouble of killing your son. You have 2 remaining children, a daughter who is 12 and a son who is 8. Your daughter will be married off as soon as possible because you can't protect her. Your young son is all you have left to help with the farm work. Your wife is devastated. She's lost a child and she knows the other children are still in danger because the blood feud hasn't ended. It's just claimed another victim. The violence isn't always about feuds. Sometimes it's just casual, opportunistic. You're traveling to a neighboring settlement to trade for tools. The journey takes 2 days. On the road, you encounter a group of young men from a family you don't know. They're bored. They see you're traveling alone. They decide to rob you. They take your goods. They take your shoes. They beat you for entertainment. They leave you on the road injured. When you eventually make it home, days later than expected, you can't do anything about it. You don't know who they were. Even if you did, you don't have the family support to seek revenge. You just lost everything you were going to trade and you have nothing to show for it except injuries. Your daughter, who is now 13, is married to a man from another family. This was supposed to create an alliance, to give your family some protection, but her new husband is aggressive. He strikes her regularly. She comes home one day with a broken arm and marks covering her face. You want to protect her, but legally she belongs to her husband now. He has the right to discipline his wife as he sees fit. If you intervene, you're interfering in another man's household, which could start a new dispute. Your daughter begs you to let her stay home. You want to say yes, but you can't. She has to go back. A week later, she's dead. Her husband says she fell. The marks on her body suggest otherwise, but there's no investigation. Her husband's family is larger and more powerful than yours. If you accuse him of wrongdoing, you'll start a blood feud you cannot win. So you bury your daughter and say nothing. Your youngest son is now 10. He's working full-time on the farm because there's no one else. He's too young for this labor. His body isn't developed enough. But you have no choice. One day while working, he's injured. A farming tool cuts deep into his leg. The wound becomes infected. You try to treat it with whatever remedies you know, but it's not enough. The infection spreads. Your son develops a fever. He's delirious, crying in pain. You watch him die slowly over a week. You've now lost 3 of your 4 children. Your wife stops speaking. She just stares at nothing, unable to process the losses. You're still working the farm because stopping means starvation, but everything feels pointless. The remaining daughter is 15 now. She's your last surviving child. A man from a neighboring family wants to marry her. He's older, in his 30s, known for being aggressive, but he's from a powerful family. This marriage might finally give you some protection. You ask your daughter what she wants. She says she doesn't want to marry him, but she understands it's not really her choice. The marriage is arranged. You hope this one will be different. It's not. Within a year, she's dead too. The official story is complications from childbirth. You don't believe it. But again, you can't do anything. Her husband's family is too powerful. You've now lost all 4 of your children to the harsh realities of Viking Age life. You're 50 years old. In Viking Age Scandinavia, this is very old. Most people don't live this long. Your body is damaged from decades of hard labor and multiple incidents. Your wife died 2 years ago. You think it was grief that killed her. Just gave up on living after losing all her children. You're alone on the farmstead that 4 generations of your family worked. There's no one to inherit it. When you die, which will be soon, the land will be claimed by stronger neighbors. Your family line ends with you. Violence permeates every social interaction. Even casual conversations carry the potential for deadly escalation. You're at a community gathering and someone makes a comment about your farm. It's not even particularly insulting. Just an observation that your fields don't look as productive as they used to. But in honor culture, any statement that could be interpreted as criticism is a challenge to your status. You have to respond, but you have to calibrate your response perfectly. Too weak and you look like you can be disrespected. Too strong and you might start a fight you can't win. You make a mild counterstatement trying to deflect. The other person pushes harder. Now there's an audience watching. Everyone is evaluating how you handle this. Your response here will affect your social standing for months. If you back down completely, people will remember. They'll test you more in future interactions. But if you escalate, you might end up in holmgang or worse. You navigate this conversational minefield, trying to maintain just enough dignity without triggering actual confrontation. It's exhausting. Every interaction requires this level of calculation. Children grow up immersed in this culture of honor and retaliation. Boys are trained from young ages to fight, to defend family honor, to never back down from challenges. This creates adults who are hypersensitive to perceived slights, who are quick to escalate to physical confrontation, who see compromise as weakness. Your grandson, before he died, got into a fight with another boy over something trivial. The fight escalated. Both boys had knives. Your grandson was stabbed. He was 11 years old. The other boy was 12. This wasn't considered unusual or shocking. This was boys being boys in Viking society. Women aren't exempt from this culture either. While they don't typically engage in direct physical combat, they're often the ones who goad men into action. A woman whose husband doesn't respond aggressively enough to an insult might publicly shame him, questioning his manhood, pushing him to prove himself through confrontation. Women are casualties of this culture too. Domestic situations turn deadly regularly. Men take out their frustrations on wives and daughters. There's no intervention, no protection, no escape. The constant state of potential violence creates profound psychological stress. You can never fully relax. You can never let your guard down. Every stranger is a potential threat. Every interaction is a potential conflict. You're always scanning for danger, always calculating risks, always ready to fight or flee. This hypervigilance is exhausting. It wears you down over years and decades. You see it in elderly people. They're jumpy, suspicious, unable to trust. Decades of living under threat of violence has rewired their nervous systems. Sleep is difficult because you're always listening for sounds that might indicate an attack. Blood feuds often involve nighttime raids. You might wake up to find armed men in your longhouse there to kill you in your sleep. You keep weapons near your bed. You sleep lightly. Any unusual sound brings you instantly alert, heart pounding, ready for violence. Your wife used to complain about how restless you were at night, how you would jolt awake at the smallest noise, but she understood why. Everyone understood why. This is normal in Viking Age Scandinavia. The legal concept of outlawry is particularly terrifying. If you're declared an outlaw, you become homo sacer, a sacred man, which paradoxically means you have no legal protection whatsoever. Anyone can kill you. Anyone can take your property. You can't seek help from courts or assemblies. You're effectively outside society. Some outlaws flee to the wilderness trying to survive alone. Most don't last long. The wilderness is harsh, and without community support, survival is nearly impossible. Some outlaws become raiders themselves, forming outlaw bands that attack isolated farms. This creates more violence, more feuds, more death. You once knew a man who was declared an outlaw for refusing to pay compensation in a dispute. He fled to the forest. For 2 years, people would occasionally see him, a wild figure living like an animal. Then one winter, they found his body. He died of exposure and starvation. No one buried him. His body was left for the wolves. This is what happens to outlaws. This is the ultimate sanction in a society with no prisons, no police, no centralized enforcement of law. The elderly are particularly vulnerable to violence because they can't defend themselves physically. When you become too old to work, too old to fight, you become a burden on your family. Some families care for their elderly well, others don't. You've heard stories of elderly people being abandoned during hard winters, left outside to die when food is scarce and mouths need to be fed. You've heard stories of elderly people being quietly killed by their own families, who can no longer afford to feed them. These stories aren't talked about openly, but everyone knows they happen. Accidents involving farm tools or animals are common, and sometimes these accidents aren't accidents. If someone wants you dead but doesn't want to start an open blood feud, a suspicious accident is convenient. You fall from a height, you're trampled by an animal, a tool slips and causes a fatal injury. There are witnesses who support the accident narrative. Maybe they're complicit. Maybe they're just people who don't want to get involved. Either way, you're dead and no one faces consequences. Raiding season brings additional dangers. When the raiders return from their expeditions, they're often drunk, violent, and looking for excitement. Even if you're not involved in raiding, you're affected by it. Raiders bring home captives who become part of the community. They bring home wealth that shifts local power dynamics. They bring home stories that glorify aggression and conquest. Young men hear these stories and want to prove themselves. More violence follows. The concept of justice through combat means that physical strength and fighting ability determine outcomes in disputes. This is fundamentally unjust for anyone who isn't a strong young man. If you're elderly, disabled, female, or just naturally not physically imposing, you're disadvantaged in every legal and social interaction. The system is designed to favor those who can commit effective violence. Everyone else must navigate around this reality, forming alliances, seeking protection from stronger parties, living cautiously to avoid provocations. Feuds can be inherited. Your great-grandfather killed someone. That person's great-grandson might decide to revive the feud and kill you, even though you had nothing to do with the original killing. The concept of collective family responsibility means that any member of a family can be targeted in revenge for something another family member did. This creates constant background anxiety. The sagas, the stories that are told and retold, glorify this aggression. They celebrate men who respond to insults with immediate physical force. They celebrate feuds that last generations. These stories shape culture, teaching each generation that force is not just acceptable but admirable. You're approaching the end of your life now. You're alone, your family destroyed. You did everything right according to the rules of this culture. You tried to maintain honor. You tried to protect your family, and still you lost everything.